Sorry, y'all.
It's Monday.
You're right. So far from you, tomorrow, which is Tuesday, I will not be here.
So class now?
Well, no, you have to show up. I'm just not going to be here. Okay, I don't know whether you're going to be here or not, because I'm not going to be here. So if you don't show up, how am I supposed to know that you're not going to be here?
So
You
who gonna
get the
teach
idea?
us? We having a Zoom?
Huh?
We having a Zoom?
No. No. So, the odds are pretty damn good that if I'm not going to be here, the door is going to be locked, the lights are going to be turned off. Why should you show up?
Okay.
Other than just that you want to bond with everybody else. And I get that. And I don't want to take away that bonding opportunity for you, so please show up. Okay? I will not be here tomorrow. What you do is up to you. Okay. So, now that I got that out of the way. Now I got that out of the way. Now I got a question.
We're turning in our essays.
Not right now. You just hold on to that for a little while. I want to heighten the anxiety that you already have by forcing you to hold on to it for a little bit. Okay. So, no tomorrow. We're good to go with that?
Yep, pretty good.
Okay, thank you. I realize that there's a high level of disappointment, but I figure you can get over it. All right, so, starting today, not tomorrow, but Wednesday and Thursday, I want to look at your second essay. And your second essay focuses on the legislative branch of government. Okay, so, does anybody have a question about what a system is? Does anybody have a question about what a process is? Discretion?
The ability to know what your job is?
And interpret your job. Not just know what it is, but the ability to interpret it. This is my job. I am going to interpret it this way. It accounts for differences among people who share the same job. Autonomy?
The independent parts of the system?
Right. It identifies autonomy identifies the component parts of the system. We're good? System, process, autonomy, and discretion, all of them focused on government as an organization. We're good to go, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well now we can actually go into this thing called government, system and process, and basically just take component part to component part to component part, look at the part, look at the system side of the coin, the autonomy side of the coin, put people into it, and then focus on their discretion. Okay? How's that working for you? And ultimately what I want to do is just build what's called the policy process. Okay?
A little bit. I just
All right. So, in order
just
to do that, I just want to go into the legislative branch of government, the United States Congress. Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to look at the legislative branch of government. I want to start by looking at the structure of it, and just the system side of the coin, the autonomy of the legislative branch of government. This is not quantum mechanics, ladies and gentlemen. It's very straightforward. Even I can do it. What I want to get to, though, what I want to look at are the outputs of the legislative branch of government. And what I'm really interested in terms of the process side of the coin, I'm interested in the outputs. How legislation is actually not just in the textbook created, but how legislation is crafted as a response to political actors outside government. Okay, what I want to look at in terms of the branches of government is the connection between political actors outside government and political actors inside government. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, well, I know that the legislative branch of government creates legislation. I got that. Legislation is what I'm calling an output. It's just a stack of paper with words on it. It's a response. Okay? Well, I got that. And I'm assuming that the response is a recognition to political actors and their inputs, right? Inputs, outputs. Problems, inputs, outputs. Yeah? I'm assuming that legislation, that members of the legislative branch of government do not just randomly do stuff. Although it quite frequently appears that that's the way it works. Look at it.
Yeah.
Here. Repeal and replace, repeal, replace. And we don't know what we're doing. Let's just do something. And when it's out, we'll just make it up. I have no idea what we're doing, but we're doing something. Okay. So, I'm assuming that there is some kind of a relationship here between political actors outside government and their inputs and the responses, the outputs in Congress. I'm assuming this. Okie doke?
Yes.
Okay. So, if that's what I'm assuming, what does the relationship actually look like? You don't have to answer the question, you just have to see the question. I just want to look and see what the relationship is. Okay? And in order to do that, you're going to get 4 models. And a model is simply a set of assumptions about how something works. Okay? This is how I think it works.
A set of instructions that work?
It's a set of, not instructions, assumptions. This is how I assume. This is the way I think something works. Okay? And these assumptions are testable. So over time, I may look at the legislative branch of government with a set of assumptions that eventually I may have to change because I just simply find out they're wrong. All right? But you're going to get 4 sets of assumptions about how the legislative branch of government functions, the process side of the coin. I don't got models for the structural side of it. It just is what it is. Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
All right. So, please no. Okay. So let's just look at the thing called the United States Congress. I take the United States Congress and I divide it into two component parts. I split it into two component parts.
The House
The United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate. All right? And I argue to you that the United States Congress is basically responsible for two constitutional functions: representation and legislation. That's what its function is. R. Yeah, R.
Legislation.
It is. Representation, legislation. That's what they do. They represent and they legislate. What is the United States Congress's functions? What are its functions? Legislation, representation. Representation, legislation. That's what it's supposed to do. Okie doke? And there's supposed to be a link between those two things. So, members of Congress represent someone, and they make legislation for someone. Our job is to figure out who they may be. Who that? Okay? So, United States House of Representatives. In the United States House of Representatives, by law, there can be no more than 435 members. So there are 435 members of the House of Representatives. Okay, Dave?
Yes.
So I know that there is a Congress, a legislative branch of government. I know that there's a House and a Senate. I know that in the United States House of Representatives, there are 435 members. I know that there's a Senate, and I know that there are 100 members of the Senate. Okay? You know that too. Because you're smart. You don't say a whole hell of a lot, but not the point. Okie doke? And I know 435, 100 voting members. I know that in the House of Representatives, and well, you don't care about that. I know in the state of Texas, the great state of Texas has 36 members. Okay, doke? I know in North Dakota as Kevin. That's it. Because there's only 4 people in the state of North Dakota, and Kevin just happens to be one of them. Okay, doke? What are the odds? I know that North Carolina has 13. And I know that Montana has Greg Gianforte. And I know that he just paid a fine and got probation for body slamming a reporter during his election campaign, during the election in Montana.
Is that what it says at large?
Yeah, because there's only one of them. The whole body slamming thing, no, that's not why it says at large. Or it could. Okay, so what accounts for the differences? Nobody cares about Montana. Is that why?
Population.
Population. That's the difference. That's why there are 36 representatives in the state of Texas and Greg in Montana and Kevin in North Dakota. Okay? All right? It's just the population. Senate? Select a state.
Alaska.
Hey, why don't we select Texas? Well, of course, we have two. Cornyn and Cruz. But North Dakota, what's up with this? North Dakota's got two. So my God, I don't think quite fair, because we are clearly more important than North Dakota. North Dakota can suck eggs, right? They get two, we get two. Not fair, but that's life. That's why there's 100. Because there's 50 states. Canada, not so much. We good?
Sure.
So there's your structure. Besides for, yeah, I know, blah, blah, blah. Besides for one thing. Let me go back up here for a second. And I get the whole leadership idea, but here's what I want to point out to you, the committees. I take the House of Representatives and I take the Senate. And I subdivide the House of Representatives and the Senate into what are called committees. The committees, and here's the list, are linked to what are called problem areas. Sneak up behind me. Problem areas. Inside problem areas, there are problems. Okay? A problem area is simply just a broad heading with lots of individual problems inside. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, foreign affairs is not one thing, it's lots of things. Energy and commerce is not one thing, it's lots of things. Education and the workforce, it's not one thing, it's lots of things. Okay, armed services, that's a broad topic. All right, science, space, and technology, even for those members of the House of Representatives who don't believe in this kind of stuff, broad topic. Veterans Affairs is different from armed services. Broad topics. Does that make sense to you? Intelligence or the lack thereof, broad topic. Okay? Is it working for you?
It would.
Yes.
Okay? All right? Russian fake news, right here. I don't know what the Joint Committee on the Library is. I'm pretty much certain I have no idea what the hell they do. Well, hell, let's find out. Hey. What is higher education without figuring it
Maintain a dual decimal system.
out? Hey, 1802. It was created in 1802. Wait, why does the Committee on the Library oversee the U.S. Botanic Garden?
Maybe there's some fancy books in the garden?
Maybe is it on that grounds?
They cut down the trees to make the paper?
Okay. All of these are good.
Maybe because it's an area of study?
Anyway,
They
now that
should
you
have
know
looked
that.
at me.
Okay, my point is that the House of Representatives and the Senate is further subdivided into committees that are linked to what are called problem areas and to specific problems within the areas. Okay? All right? So I take the House, divide them into committees. I take the committees and I divide those into what are called subcommittees. The subcommittees are linked to particular problems within larger problem areas. The committee deals with problem areas. The subcommittees deal with specific problems. How's that working for you? House of Representatives, subdivide into committees. Take the committees, subdivide those into subcommittees. Large, general, more specific, even more specific. How's that working for you? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And in theory, this is how the House of Representatives builds a structure that allows it to be responsive to inputs linked to problems. Okay? This is how it's supposed to work. Nothing more interesting out there than in here, so I'll just stay in here. Okay? Does that make sense to you? And I do the same thing. I do the same thing over here by crafting committees. Okay?
Are they all split up into like the same committees, even like the House and the Senate?
There is a link. There should be, because you've got, if you look at it, you've got the same, they may not be the same heading, but they're basically subdivided the same. So I can take energy and natural resources. I can look at energy and natural resources, and I'm looking at Lisa Murkowski right at the moment. She's the chair of the Republican, right? I have the ranking member from the Democratic Party there as well, Maria Cantwell. Okay? How we doing?
Good so far.
We're good? It's not bad. This is Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and there's your subcommittees. Okay? So we got a problem area called Homeland Security, and then I just subdivide that down into subcommittees. Right? And I'm off and running. How's that working for y'all?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
We're good? So good? Kinda good? Not any good at all? I have no idea what he's talking about. I very rarely, but that's just me. No, I just did that. No way. Thanks. Did you just turn back on? I just did that. Okay. So, back to the legislative branch of government. Now you got the structure. We're all on the structure page. Everybody see the structure? Okay, so I have a structure, Senate, House, committees, subcommittees. And now I populate it with 435 people in the House, 100 in the Senate. I'm assuming that in the House, that's a recognition of population differences between the states. Everybody gets the same number in the Senate. Okay, so. $435 in the House. The United States of America is divided into 435 voting districts. Okay? The state of Texas gets 36 of them. And by population, we simply divide it out among the states. Okay? 36 here, 13 in North Carolina, 1. Okay? See how it works? Okay? What?
Is each member on a committee?
Yes. More than one. More than one. You only got 435 people, so, and you've got lots of committees and lots of subcommittees, so they serve on in a number of different committees and a number of subcommittees. They do more than one thing at a time. So it's not just, I am a member of the House of Representatives, I go to Washington, D.C. and vote on legislation as a member. I am also a member of a number of committees and a number of subcommittees. Thank you. What?
Did you say the committees are in the House?
They're in both. I've got committees in the House and I have committees in the Senate. What do you think?
What about like special investigative committees like within the House?
Okay, that's a joint committee and it's a special committee. That's called what's called an ad hoc committee. It's created for a time and then disappears. So I'm not counting those, and that doesn't count those. Anything that's just temporary, I'm not really counting. And I'm not counting things going back into the 1970s. So I'm not counting. I'm not counting the Watergate hearings. I'm not counting those kinds of things, which are special creations that exist for a time period and then disappear. These are fixed. They're not going anywhere. You're just trying to make life more complicated than it actually is. That's my job, so please stop. Okay, so I take the state of Texas and I subdivide the state of Texas into 36 voting districts. And I try to make those 36 voting districts equal, more or less equal, in terms of numbers of people in them. Okay? Okay. West Texas, I our districts are very large because there are 6 people, a whole bunch of jackalopes. That's just it. And out here, there are very few jackalopes, lots of people. Okay? How's that working for you? And we just move from there. Okey-doke? That's the way it's supposed to work. Okay. So, if that's the way it's supposed to work, then what I want to do is populate the structure with 535 people and then actually see how those people use their discretion when they work through the process, when they respond. In reality, what does the process look like when the members of the House of Representatives and the Senate work through the process of producing legislation? And literally, it's the same question I asked in 2306. To whom do these political actors respond? Why do they produce legislation? For what purpose? For whose purpose? Which political actors get responses and which political actors don't? Or which political actors get responses first and which political actors get responses later? Does that make sense to you? What's the relationship between political actors inside government and political actors outside government? You have to answer the question, you just have to see the question. Because there's like 8 different ways of saying the very same thing.
What would be an example of political actors outside the government?
Well, voters, citizens. I mean, that's your textbook answer. Your textbook answer assumes that the principal relationship between members of the Senate and the House of Representatives and political actors outside government is the relationship between us, citizens, and the people we elect to govern. Remember that whole republic thing? Right? Remember a republic? In a democracy, we create the government. The government functions based on our inputs. Remember that whole we the people thing? We're supposed to be in control of government. Okay, that's awesome. Well, does that mean all the people equally, or does it mean something else? You have to answer the question, you have to see the question. Does that make sense? Yes. So, based on your textbook, the authors of your textbook, and they don't do this in real life. In real life, they don't assume this. Well, Ted Lowy is dead, so, but I know that's not what he believed. In real life, that's not his point. So, your textbook assumes that the principal relationship between the political actors inside government and the political actors outside government is the relationship between elected officials and the people in the voting districts who elected them. That's a whole democracy thing. Okay, that, ladies and gentlemen, is your textbook. Okay. Because we are more sophisticated here at the Harvard Community Colleges and we want to dig deeper into this, we just assume that there are alternative methods of understanding these things. There are other models out there, besides for just your textbook. And as good political science majors all over the world want to do, they want to dig deeper. And that's what we're going to do. Woohoo! Enthusiasm off the scale.
Yeah.
You guys,
Let's do this, yeah.
boy, howdy. heat just coming off your hands is just steaming. I just gotta come out here, it's so warm in there. Do you mind if I just talk from out here? Okay, anybody got a question? I'll disappoint. Were you formulating your question?
Yeah.
Okay. When you get there, just let me know.
So if you were to define what a political actor is, you would say that it's a person working inside and outside the government?
Okay, that's where we're headed. Okay, just on face value, in the legislative branch of government, Senate, House of Representatives, are there elected officials?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, right now, as I look at the legislative branch of government, the 435 elected officials in the House, the 100 members of the Senate, those are the political actors here I'm looking at. Okay? Your question actually goes to here, because I know the answer to this. What do I mean? What do you mean? What do we mean when we try to figure out what a political actor is outside government? Who are we talking about? And that's precisely what we're going to do. That's a large part of what we're doing. Simply defining this. Because my argument to you is there's more than one way of defining, not defining, political actor. In here, it's not that complicated, because I'm simply talking about 535 elected officials. I got that. This is different, and this is why the models are different. Okay? How we doing? Good question, I like that. Well done. Take the rest of the day off.
How about we leave?
We can leave Tuesday.
Yeah, you don't gotta be here Tuesday, so. It's like, after all this high energy you're putting out today, probably it's good to take a day off just to recharge a little bit and come back on Wednesday. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Y'all gonna be worn out by the end of this. I understand that. So a day off is good for you. That'd be good. It's all that brain exercise wears you out after a while, and we need to recharge a little bit. Good for you. You'll thank yourself later on in life for this. Well, they were recorded. Good? Gooder?
Lot better.
Good?
Yep.
That's where I am. And I'm going to assume that out of this relationship, the 535 people here and the who the hell ever it is I'm talking about out here, you're going to get, they're going to have some relationship to in problem areas. Is that working for you? How we doing? Anybody got a question?
So the different models you're talking about, is that going to define the political actors differently?
Yes. Let's just talk about the first model. Okay. So let's just talk about a model called majoritarianism. And it is exactly what it sounds like.
The majority rules.
Majority rules. Okay, that's literally exactly what it sounds like. If I can look inside a state or a country, and I can see a majority of citizens who think alike, who want the same thing, then government should respond to them. Whatever the majority wants, that's what government does. Okay? Does that make sense to you? Look, I mean, how did these people, how did the 435 members of the House of Representatives get there? They won an election. Majority rule. Right? Well, this simply says, if I can see a majority, then that's what the legislative branch of government should do. Identify the majority, identify how the majority think, identify which problems are most important to the majority, and that's what we do. This is easy. Well, it's a little more difficult when nobody talks to you. That becomes a little more difficult. But in that sense, I just get to do whatever I want to do, which is basically what I do anyway. Well, you know? So, if I can see a majority, then the 435 members of the House of Representatives should respond to the majority of the American citizens. I don't care if it's North Dakota, North Carolina, or Texas. Okay? This is what the majority wants. This is what we're doing. Let's just run with it. Okey-doke? Anybody see a problem with this?
Yeah, it undermines the idea of democracy.
Well, in a sense, it really doesn't, because the whole we the people get to decide this stuff. So in theory, we should be able to work it out. And remember those 8 common core values, right? Since we're all sharing the same 8 common core values, we're just one big happy family anyway. So as one big happy family of Americans, it shouldn't be that complicated to find the majority, right? We're Americans, right? So the majority should be easy to figure out. One big happy non-rational family.
No, people tend to get in groups and pull it all together in their favor.
It's difficult to find the majority. In fact, the majority probably doesn't exist. Right? Yeah, I probably should have shut the door before I said that, because I don't want to freak anybody out that walks by. What do you mean the majority of it? Who the hell said that? Okay, look, the big flaw with the assumption of majoritarianism is that you can actually identify a majority. And here's the second flaw. Even if you can identify a majority, that doesn't mean that it's a stable majority. It can be a majority today, but not tomorrow. So what in the hell am I supposed to do then? Stop thinking. What are we supposed to freeze this stuff? Yep, that's it. Okay? So there are at least several significant flaws with the concept of majoritarianism. And there's this guy. I'm assuming you can spell Richard. Starts with an R. Richard Fenno.
E or L?
F-E-N-N-O, Richard Fenno. So, Fenno spent 30 years looking at the relationship between elected officials, particularly in the House of Representatives, and the districts that they theoretically represent. So what Fenno wanted to look at is within the districts, in reality, who gets the positive responses, who wins and who loses, in reality. Is it the majority or is it someone else? If I look at the relationship between members of the House and the people in their districts, I get a pretty good idea of who is going to win and who's going to lose. Does that make sense to you? Okay. If there's no majority, then I have to figure out another way of figuring out who wins and who loses. And this is what Fenno does. So Fenno takes us out of Washington, D.C. and puts us into the 36 districts in the state of Texas. Just forget about Washington. Just don't concentrate on Washington. Concentrate on the member of the House when they fly back to Texas and they go to their district and they interact with the people who elected them to office. Those are the people they should represent. Okay, so what does that actually look like? And that's what Fenno did. So Fenno, as he looks at the districts, he argues that on one level, and one level only, members of the House of Representatives represent every single person in the district. Universal representation. Everybody gets represented equally on one level. Anyone want to figure it out?
That they're represented?
Huh?
That they're represented?
Yeah. Well, okay, why though? Why is everyone equal to everyone else in the district? On what level can everyone in the district say, I am equal to everyone else in the district?
Because they're people.
Because they're people, but,
They vote. They can, they have the option to vote.
well, no. Why? Yes, down the road. But why right off the bat? If this room is a district, District 157, in the state of Texas, why are you all equal?
Because
Because we're counted.
we live in the district.
Because
We all live in the district.
we all live in the same district. Got to talk louder. We live here. Okay, doke. Monday through Thursday. We all live here. We go to work the rest of the time, and we do other stuff, but we all live in the same district, therefore we're all equal. Okay? On that one basic level, we are all equal, but that's it. It stops after that. Because once you start to look, then you start to notice differences. There are differences. And voting is one of those differences. Some of us, well, in here it's universal. Everybody loves to vote because we are the only district in the United States of America crafted solely of political science majors. It's awesome to be us. However, in the other districts, in District 156, they're not all political science majors. Oh no, they're not. there's differences in S-156. And one of the basic differences is some of them people don't vote. Oh my God. So, if some of them don't vote and some of them do, Richard Fenno argues that this is one of the principal distinctions. Look, I can, and I don't do this a whole lot, but I can go and look. I can just go to this. I can go to the records, and I can look at voting patterns within each of the House of Representatives, 36 districts in the state of Texas. I can just go and look at them. I can go and look at voting distinctions. I can see who votes. I can see who they vote for. I can look at voting patterns within the district. I can see all sorts of things on voting records. They're open to the public. Anyone can do this. So I can go and I can look and I can see distinctions between the people who live in the district. Now, one of the principal distinctions is some people vote and some people don't. And that's what Fenno argues. Fenno argues that if I am an elected official, it is in my best interest to respond to voters, particularly voters who vote for me. Look, if you don't vote for me, and I can go back and look, and I can see that you've never voted for me, your entire family has never voted for me, none of your friends have ever voted for me, your dog chases me down the street when I go by. Dude, I'm sorry, but when you have a moment, I am not likely to respond to you. Okay? But you guys over here, you are faithful voters. You always vote for me. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. And I will constantly, my interest is making sure you're happy. You guys over here, those of you who don't vote, I have an interest in reaching out to you in the hopes that you might vote for me if I just do something for you. I'm not going to do as much as for these guys over here, but I'll do something just to get you to think about voting for me. You guys who won't vote for me at all, suck eggs. Just forget it. It ain't happening. Okie doke? How's that working for you? Look, when I moved here, and I moved to Magnolia 15, it was almost 16 years ago. When I moved here, I knew 0 people. I knew like 4 people who worked here at Lone Star College, Tomball. That's it. I had no idea where I was going to live. I had no idea about anything. I was clueless then, more clueless now. Okay, so no idea. So I show up in Magnolia, Texas, early in the morning. I'm not a morning person. So what is now Kitty's Cafe used to be Honey's, way back when. Anyway, I showed up at this diner in Magnolia. Okay. And there were no cars in the parking lot when I showed up. And I have Colorado plates on the car. Okay. So all I want is breakfast and left the hell alone. Okay, so as I'm sitting there, in through the door over some time, I feel the place kind of filling up, but I'm not really paying attention. And as I sort of come awake a little bit, I notice that there is a large table in the cafe. And that table is becoming increasingly populated with people. There are other booths, but there's this one table. And as a social scientist, eventually I begin to sort of look at the dynamics of the room, and I'm beginning to figure out that that table has some unique qualities to it. Because over time, everybody else in the restaurant is sort of passing by the table to say good morning to the people at the table. The table ain't going to anybody. Everybody else is coming to the people at the table, aside from me. So, pretty soon, the people at the table begin to take notice of me. They saw that car in the parking lot with the Colorado plates. They pretty much pegged that car to me. Well, now they're interested in who I am. And it's one of those little things. So I can sort of see the conversation over there. And there are some people in uniform. And I'm not quite sure who they are. But anyway, I can see this. And I can sort of see well, you go talk to him. No, you go talk to him. No, you go talk. So you can sort of see. And whoever has to come talk to me is kind of low person on the totem pole kind of thing. And they got told to go do this. So eventually this guy gets up in uniform and he just sort of makes this sweep around the room to go get a cup of coffee, refill a cup of coffee. Right, so he makes the sweep right by me and says good morning and sees that my coffee cup is half empty, so he makes that pretense to, hey, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Can I get you one too? And I'm like, hell yes, please do that. So anyway, this means that he actually gets to come back, right? And we have to talk. Okay, you got me a cup of coffee, now I have to talk to you. Crap, I'm indebted to you. Should have said no. But then I wanted a cup of coffee. So anyway, he turns out to be a deputy constable, a nice person, and I didn't know what constables were because I've never lived in a place where there were constables. So this was like a total end for me, like you're a constable, a deputy, what the hell does that mean? What are you? What do you do? So he has to tell me about all this stuff, and then we get this whole back and forth. I'm coming here, and I'm trying to find a place to live, and I've got like 3 weeks to do this, and I'm going to be teaching at Lodestar College at Tomball, and I want to live in Magnolia, and so it's this kind of back and forth thing. So anyway, eventually, he goes back to the table and sort of tells everybody who I am. Well, that just opens the floodgates. So literally, as everybody leaves, boy, how do they have to come by to introduce themselves? So I get introduced to one of the municipal judges. I get the mayor of Magnolia. I get the head of the Chamber of Commerce from Magnolia. I get, and this is like the most awesome thing in the universe to somebody who has not lived here, I get 2 Texas Rangers. This is like a huge score for people who didn't really believe that they actually existed. This is awesome. So I get to meet 2 Texas Rangers. I get to meet Reverend Worley, who is pastor for one of the churches in Magnolia, who I actually wound up renting a small house from for 6 months until I could find somewhere else to live. So I actually found a place to live out of this. This is awesome. And I got to meet I got to meet Constable Hill, the constable from our precinct in Magnolia. And not only did I get to do that, but I got a free ticket to his annual fish fry. And I have not turned in that down. Like, this is awesome. Place to live and food. This is great. So, I took the ticket and I showed up. And Constable Hill appointed the same poor guy to basically just introduce me to people. I got to meet Congressman Brady, my representative in the United States House of Representatives. I got to meet my local representatives here in the state of Texas. I got to meet all of these people. Now, why did they take, and let me tell you this, not only did I do that, but I got extra hush puppies.
It makes it worthwhile.
It was worthwhile. This is awesome. But I'll also tell you that there were people there at that fish fry who had to pay, and they didn't get extra hush puppies. And there were some people that actually paid more because it was like a contribution thing. Okay. So why did they take such an interest in me? Yes, it's because I'm a hell of a nice guy. No, that's not why. What?
It's because you were new and you just didn't
Didn't
want
get on the
to.
I'm potential. I am a potential voter. I am an unknown. And they reach out because they understand that the unknown is something they don't like. They want to control the unknown. That's why I got that ticket. That's why, I mean, literally that's why. Because they want a voter. And they pretty much understood that if I'm coming to work here, that they got the idea that I'm at least minimally educated and that I understand how the process works and I understand how representatives can actually respond to me. I got that. So they understood that. So literally, this is Fenno's point. Fenno's point is don't look at the majority. Look at patterns. Look at areas of your district where people vote, who don't vote, who vote for me, who don't vote for me, and then go and do for them. And literally, Fenno's argument is this is the way members of the House of Representatives and to an extent the Senate actually function. They don't function looking for consensus. They don't function looking for grand majorities. They function looking for compacted groups that they can actually respond to, and in a relationship where they win too. You win, they win. Okay, does that make sense to you? How are we doing? Okay, let me add to Fenno. There's another point to Fenno. There are other groups that Fenno, there's one other group really of interest here that Fenno talks about, and that's the ability of elites to control the process. Do we need to talk through elites? What an elite is? Anyone?
Sure.
Well, an elite is a political, economic, social, religious minority that has more power than everyone else. It's an identifiable group that has more power than anyone else. Okay, Doug? How's that working for you? We're good? Sort of good? Good. Okay, do elites exist in America? Oh yeah, they do. Okay, so I've taken that whole we the people thing and I've subdivided it because I can't find the majority. Okay, well, Fenno argues that increasingly elections are becoming more and more expensive. It becomes increasingly expensive to get elected, re-elected to office. Even local elections are becoming six-figure campaigns, seven-figure campaigns. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're talking millions of dollars. Okay, if I need millions of dollars in order to either get elected or stay elected, where is that money coming from? And increasingly, excuse me, the money is not coming from my $25. It's not coming from your ability to write a check or send in $10. $10 at a time is not going to get it. So increasingly what Fenno has argued is that members of the House of Representatives, members of Congress, in order to become re-elected, create relationships with elites who have the money to fund their campaigns. Okay, Doug? How's that working for you? So, I do outreach. And I go out and I attempt to establish a relationship with an economic political elite who has the ability to fund my campaign. And Finno argues that that relationship has strings. There are ties to that relationship. There are expectations to that relationship. Look, I'm not going to give you $600,000 for your campaign just because I love democracy. That's not happening. I'm going to expect when I call that you answer the phone. I'm going to expect some kind of a policy relationship between my demands and your responses. Does that make sense to you? Okay, there? And that's Finno's argument. Finno's argument is that it may not be a direct relationship all the time, but one of the relationships that elected officials need to recognize is the relationship between those who can afford funds for campaigns and those who need the campaign funds. This is the way of life. Okay, how's that working for y'all? The point to Finno is that if you want to go into America and looking for a majority of we the people with a consistent, coherent demand, just forget it. And at the same time, even if you look inside the districts, you will see distinctions that elected officials have to recognize. They have to think through this stuff. Okay, does that make sense to you? How about right hand means yes, left hand means no? How'll that work? Maybe. I tell you I don't take this personally, but it's obvious that I do.
Little milk toast.
Huh?
Little milk toast. I played this derivative last week.
Sorry. Okay, so can we just take majoritarianism off the table?
Yep.
Yes. It's a sucky model, and it doesn't really do a whole lot.
A majority of us have said yes.
Most of you just say nothing, so it's like the telepathic model of democracy.
But there's more yeses than no.
We good?
Sure.
Okay, there's one down.
Yeah.
3 to go. This sucks. Okay.
What's our next one?
Pluralism. And I don't think this is in your syllabus, and I will get you a copy of this. Anyway, if majoritarianism doesn't work, if I can't find a majority voice, a majority interest, a majority of Americans in agreement,
And you'll find a general interest?
well, then, if I can't figure out that generality thing, what connects all of us together, then I'm going to assume the opposite. And the opposite is there are plural interests in America. that smaller groups may share a common interest, but it's not the majority. It's plural interest, not majority interest, plural interest. You don't all share the same problems. You don't all see the world the same way. There are distinct differences within America. Okay?
Okay.
And those distinctions are at the base of this thing called pluralism. We're not all one. We may in theory share the same common values, but we don't all share the same problems. We don't all see the world the same way. There are clear distinctions. One of those distinctions is that there are simply different problems that affect different people. Does that make sense to you?
So as to say, we all share the same values.
We may,
We may share the same values.
but we clearly do not share the same problems.
So it's hard to narrow down the majority problem.
Right. I just don't know what that is. But I can separate out the groups of people who are affected by a given problem, and I can sort of see America that way. Does that make sense to you? That's the basic assumption of pluralism. Instead of one America, there are plural Americas with people in the groups affected by different problems, which means you're not going to have one singular demand. You are going to have many different demands. Okay? How's that working for you? We good?
Okay.
Okay. We don't have to move beyond citizens. Here's the question. Will all citizens have the same demands on government? No, they don't. Okay, so even if I just stick with citizens, I'm going to have plural demands because I have different problems that affect different citizens. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in the 1700s, along comes James Madison, and James Madison gives us the concept of pluralism. Plural groups of citizens with plural demands. Okay? Plural groups of citizens with plural demands. Each group of citizens has a different demand. I simply divide we the people into different groups that are affected by different problems and just expect them to have different demands. I just subdivide we the people based on problems that affect different groups in society. And I just assume that people are going to have different demands based on which problems are affecting them. Plural. Okay? And this is Madison's argument. Madison argues that in a room with this many people in there, you are not all going to be affected by the same problems. But there is going to be at least some of you that are affected by the same problems. Okay? Over time, those of you in here who share a problem are going to find each other. You're going to figure it out. And you're going to start talking to each other. And eventually, you are going to form what Madison called them factions. We know them today as citizen interest groups. And there's a chapter in your textbook on citizen interest groups. All right? A citizen interest group or a faction is just a group of citizens who share a common interest. They're being affected by the same problem. Okay, Doug? All right? And here's the kicker for Madison. The people in the group share a common problem. They want government to respond to them, and they are in Madison's words, they are actuated. Anybody want to take a stab? Not literal. That would be like promoting violence, and we're not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff.
Stick.
Well, find a word in there. Within here, look at that word right there. So now what do you think the word means?
To act on.
The problem makes the people show their problem and how they can get fixed.
What do you think? You were headed down there, and so were you. What do you think that word means now?
Take action.
Motivated to act. Look, I'm not just going to sit, this is exactly it. I'm not going to sit around and just talk to you about it. We're madder than hell, and we're going to go do something. Okay, David? I am motivated to act. I'm not just going to sit around and have a debate about this. Oh my God. No, hell no. 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 I am mad. We are mad, and we are going to take our demands to government, and we're going to make sure that we get what we want. Okay, Dave? Look, Madison argues that citizens who share a common interest will, over time, find each other. And out of those people who form those groups, they will be motivated to act. Because Americans are basically political people. We recognize that in order to get what we want in relationship to a given problem, we have to enter this process. We have to take our demands to government. Government will respond. Okay, Dave? We're smart. We understand. We are politically aware enough to recognize that in order to get a response, you have to make a demand. Well, here's the question. Is it better for you to make a demand as an individual or as a member of a group? See the question? And Madison's argument is there's power in numbers. I may not be able to see you, but I can see everybody else in this room plus you. I go, hey, oh my God, a group. Ooh. Hey, a group of citizens who are now pissed off enough that they're actually going to vote. Hey, I better respond to them. Oh my God. I'm not just a bunch of, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Let's just sit around and talk about it a little bit. I got better things to do. Reruns of the Suns. Woo! This would be awesome. So I am not going to respond to a group of citizens who are simply sitting around pissing and moaning. But a citizen group that's actuated. Hey, if you don't respond to me, we're going to go vote you out of office. Oh my God. I go, oh God, the citizens are in. I got to do this. Right? pluralism is one way of explaining the Tea Party rise in the state of Texas. A group of citizens get so pissed off at governmental officials for theoretically not responding to them that they form a group. They call it a name, the Tea Party. They've got costumes. This is awesome. And they take to the street with their demands. And they actually up their voting. They actually have candidates running for office, and the candidates start winning, and the rest of everybody says, whoops, better pay attention to them folks. Okie doke. In theory, this is how we got Ted Cruz as our junior senator from the state of Texas. Does that make sense to you? So, in that sense, the Tea Party is the perfect example of pluralism in action. Not so much later on down the road when I get to these other models, but right now, okie doke. How's that working for you?
So a group of people have a collective problem, they get together and act on it. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about Robert Dahl for a second. In the Dahl died a couple years ago. Anyway, Dahl, up until 2002 or so, was a professor of political science at Harvard, and no, Princeton. Anyway, Dahl started writing in the early 50s, and Dahl went back to this concept of pluralism from Madison, and he did it because well, you don't care about that. Anyway, Dahl started to take Madison's argument and try to make it relevant for the 20th century. Like, how do we do this today? So, Dahl starts to look at the concept of pluralism and make it relevant for us, modernize it. So, here's Dahl. And this is from one of Dahl's books. You don't have to write this down, just listen. I define the normal American political process as one in which there is a high probability that an active, actuated, and legitimate group in the population, we the people, can make itself heard effectively at some crucial stage in the process of decision making. This is a stage in the decision-making process. So Dahl argues that it's normal for groups of citizens to come together, bring their demands to the legislative branch of government in an attempt to become a winner and not a loser. Okay? Does that make sense to you? These groups, to Madison, they have to be connected to a particular problem, and they have to be motivated to act. Dahl makes another argument. Not only do they have to be connected to a specific problem and set of demands, and they need to be actuated. The third idea from Dahl is that these groups must be legitimate. Okie doke? How's that working for y'all? What that means is the group has to accept our 8 common core values. The group has to function based on the 8 common core values. Make sense? The group cannot ignore the 8 common core values. Whatever the group does in terms of bringing its demands to government has to be consistent with the 8 common core values. Okay? So, I can see a group. I can see that the group is actuated. But if I can't see that the group is legitimate, then I have a problem. Does that make sense to you? Yes. Are you sure?
Yes.
Would you tell me? No. What do you mean no input is detected? Why is there no input detected? It's a meal. Trade you. No, I can't trade you. Back just in time to watch technology not work. Now you're leaving. Go ahead. You walked out of the room all the way over it was Anyway, if this doesn't work, I'll just do it Wednesday. It's not the end of the world. But do you guys know what the Southern Poverty Law Center is?
What?
Southern Poverty Law Center.
No.
It's either a yes or a no.
No.
Okay, that's fine. The Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, was created back, I think, in the 1970s, late 60s, early 70s. It's housed in Montgomery, Alabama. It's a big center, downtown Montgomery, Alabama. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, one of the functions of the SPLC over the years has been to construct and track hate groups in America. And what they've done is they basically compiled a list of hate groups in America, and they've just basically been adding to the list. And they basically created a hate map. And of course it won't work. anyway, the hate map is literally the map of the United States of America. And, well, there it is right there. Yeah, technology. Issues. This is what the Southern Poverty Law Center does. Those are the topics, the problems that it specifically deals with. So, and out of that, they have created basically a map of America with what they have identified as 917 hate groups currently operating within the United States. And there's your map. Okay?
Utah.
Look at Florida.
To Nevada.
What? Calico Rock.
I don't know.
They really hate music.
God, how dare those country weapons do this?
They have CD burning
Oh,
parties.
hate music.
Wow.
Wow.
You think that they hate music?
Okay.
I don't think that's what they mean.
God, I really just can't handle slow jazz.
Referred to as hate core.
So, I mean, obviously that's my kind of joke, but
I mean, music is to get a message across at once. Oh. I can only guess what that one is.
well, that's what it is, right?
Oh, okay. Gotta pray away to go.
General hate.
Everybody sucks.
I like that.
Just, hey, never.
All run by Grumpy Smurf.
Wait a second.
General hate.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure like everybody.
Can we just read through a lot of these curves? Kind of, so then we're all just kind of.
Not easily categorized. When I say you suck, I mean that in broad terms.
Fall into the general hate category.
I don't know.
Just a really angry group of people that get together.
Just,
I hate meeting in the morning. Well, I hate you.
I'm sorry, but I don't know what that means. Maybe I should, but I really don't.
A lot of Nazi groups.
Yes, there are a lot of Nazi groups. There's a lot of white supremacist groups on here.
What's the fist? No, anti-Muslim.
There's specific groups, there's general groups, there's all sorts of different groups that SPLC has identified as hate groups.
What's
What?
the fist in the crown
Where?
on the map? The fist in the crown. Like the orange one and
Yes.
the yellow one. Yeah. Oh. The white nationalists. And then, yeah. Oh. Christian
I don't know.
identity.
So anyway, here's my point, and this is the SPLC's point. The list is growing. The list is not shrinking, the list is growing. And over the last year or so, the list has accelerated in the number of groups that potentially are going to be put on the list. So this is not a diminishing number, it is a rapidly expanding number. Okay, so here's a way of very quickly going legitimate, not so legitimate. Can I see within a group, an identifiable group, can I see a link to the 8 common core values? Okay, general hate is not one of those 8 common core values, nor is specific hate. Okay, so if I can't see a link to the specific 8 common core values, then Dahl's argument is government should not respond. Why? Because the group is not legitimate. It's not complicated. that's the Southern Poverty Law Centers. That's the plus with taking a look at the SPLC.
Is this a government-funded like agency, or is it just?
No, it's not. It's a separate entity. And they made a specific, Morris Dees, one of the founders of the SPLC, made a specific decision to house it in Montgomery, Alabama. They chose Montgomery for a reason. Okay, so the SPLC is down at the far end. The state capitol is up on is sort of up on a hill. Dr. King's church is sort of right below that, and then the SPLC is down at the bottom of the hill, sort of in the center of downtown Montgomery. So that's what I wanted to argue. So with pluralism, I can at least give you examples that you can use to sort of distinguish legitimate, not so legitimate. And in pluralism, there should be no illegitimate group getting a response from government. Does that make sense to you? Okay? Unless, and here's the reality of it, unless the group already controls the government. Does that make sense to you? If I can show you a linkage between the group and the government, then this whole idea of pluralism at least gets called into question. Does that make sense to you? Make sense? Okay, so I was born and more or less raised in the state of Alabama. Besides for a few years in North Carolina, my mother's father was an employee of the state government. My father was an employee of the state government. Well, my grandfather is Assistant Secretary of Agriculture in the state of Alabama, and he was in that position since the early 50s to the mid 70s. My grandfather was a member of the Klan. Okay, and I know he was a member of the Klan because in order to have that job, he had to be a member of the Klan. You didn't get to that position without being a member of the Klan. The Klan controlled the state government in Alabama. From the governor's office, lieutenant governor's office, all the way down into the state troopers, into the prison system, everyone who had any position of authority was white and was a member of the Klan. Now, they didn't have to have a sheet in their closet, and they didn't have to be an active member, but they had to be a member of the Klan. Okay, so if that's the reality of Alabama, at least until George Wallace leaves office in the 1970s. Okay, what about pluralism? What about the basic idea of Robert Dahl in terms of legitimacy? See the question? So just because I make an argument with a set of assumptions about this is the way things work, well, then you have to step back a little bit and you have to ask yourself the question, in reality, is that assumption based on a solid foundation, or are there counters to it that we need to take into account? See the deal? Mm-hmm. Understand what I'm saying to you? So here's what I want to do. When we come back, not tomorrow, I know this is a huge shock to your system, and I know that you are all sad about this. So when we come back on Wednesday, I need to finish this pluralism thing. I want to give you 2 other models. Look inside your essay and make sure that we're all on the same page. What? I want your essays. I haven't had a good laugh today, so I need that was a really mean thing to say, wasn't it?
Yeah. I tried so hard.